Okay, let's go to the next one. Okay, on the left-hand side, the Lord says, Christ's apostles would make sure that their converts join the Christ 2 church, establishing the church to learn to be obedient and to the ordinances and commandments. Again, this could be in the background. You know, a lot of things happen to you on the way to church. A lot of things happen to you on the way to work. You talk to God brings you to different people in the church throughout the world to talk to them about Christ. It gives you the opportunity to talk to these people by bringing these people together. I don't know exactly how that happens because I know some of my chances. One of them was in middle of the night. My daughter calls. I have to go pick up her boyfriend in Seattle at an airplane. Get there, it's 2 in the morning, and I get a 2-hour-long talk with a Christian who's leaving to become a Buddhist. Now, what's the possibilities of that? Okay, things happen to bring people together. Angels have had their way in that throughout all the Bible, and it's more in the background than on the foreground. Again, preserving the scriptures and waiting for Joseph Smith. Those are my answers to his pamphlet. I got a couple more things. We talked about whether or not the church was going to be completely wiped out as far as goes. If you raise it to the highest there, the last verse, Acts 20 and 29, he says, For I, Paul, know this, that after my departing shall be grievous wolves enter among you, and not sparing the flock. Now, if I were going to go out in the flock of sheep next to my house, and I would kill them all and not sparing them all, would there be any left? I would not spare them all. That's words that Paul uses, would not spare the flock. If he left one or two, then there would be a sparing of the flock. There would be one or two spared. And so there is another one that talks about that, if I can find it. Okay, we talked about the priesthood again. Again, these are terms that Numbers uses. Aaron the priest, he uses congregation of elders. And in the order of Melchizedek, there's no other explanation for that terminology except for some sort of priesthood or fellowship or united order of something going on there between the Melchizedek people. It wouldn't be like the order at Wendy's to get your hamburger. So I guess the order of Melchizedek establishes to me a priesthood order that Melchizedek had, that he belonged to, that he was of. And so I think that was the idea that there was no priesthood is still a little clandestine. I mean, what do you say? It's not fully backed up by what's going on. Okay. It says here again, this is Strong's, and it talks about being united in one body. As a Mormon looking out into the sea of churches, I see a lot of bodies. Now, I know you're united on a few things, but what I don't see is that you're united on all things. I don't see one body. I see lots of body as a Mormon looking outward. And so it's quite a stretch for a Mormon to understand that from the outside, being on the outside, that you are one body. Mainly because I see cults that imitate the Christian church, and we know they're not part of the body. They just carry the name. So again, the pot calling the kettle black is going on here. We don't know exactly, from the inside as a Mormon, it just seems like the pot calling the kettle black, whether you would exclude an LDS person from being a Christian or not. That would have to go on doctrine, and that's another whole story. So there's a lot of, and Paul says that on the big things let there be unity, and the little things let there be diversion, or whatever. There's another word for that. But what's a big thing? Is apostles and prophets a big thing? I don't see any church out there with very few that even claim to have an apostle. There's an apostolic blankety blank church out there, I know, but I don't think they claim to have 12 apostles that lead their church. So is there unity that shows that they have these officers that the early church had? Are they in unity with the early church as far as the structure? All I see is pastors from the Mormon set of eyes. So it's tough for me to see anything other than a parallel between the early church with all their elders and prophets and bishops and things and the Mormon church. Okay. This just talks about, again, in the front of the topic, and it reminded me that a lot of churches out here don't have Christ's name on it. Now, they may very well have Christ in their hearts and Christ in their scriptures and Christ in everything, but this church is called Calvary Chapel. It's about Christ, but is it Christ's church? Okay, what else goes on at Calvary Chapel? It leaves doubt for the Mormon to wonder what you're worshiping, you know. And I guess you can't all be the Church of Christ because there's laws against that, copyright laws against that. In fact, the early church was their first name was the Church of Christ, and the church that preceded them filed suit and reclaimed their name, and the church in 1834 changed their name to the Church of Latter-day Saints. And they realized after a while that Christ wasn't in their name, so in 1848 they actually became the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints. Just a little history. Okay, one last question. I got 1 minute, 17 seconds. The bottom verse there talks about Jesus visiting sheep of another fold. If he's in Jerusalem and all these Christians are about him, and that's one fold, my only question is where the other fold is. If it's not in the Americas, where did he go? What fold would he be? That's it.
Your turn, Marshall. Up you go. Marshall's rebuttal is, I know, which is false.
Okay, well, I took the tract off the web so my opponent wouldn't know my information, but I couldn't rip them all off from Jerry. He knows this stuff real well, so he has overheads because he knew what I was going to say, but I didn't know what he was going to say. So you'll have to bear with me explaining some things from you. One of the things Jerry said, point number one, I would say, is he says keywords are the same here. We have a tire, we have a trunk, we have a radiator, we have a top, we have hood, we have all these different windshield, things like that. So if it looks the same, if it says the same word, it must be the same. The problem with that logic is it has to be defining the same. So we're looking at a definition here, okay?